Hello and welcome to DieCastRestos for my entry to the January 3 Blind Mice build-off. I'm Jason and this is the Matchbox 35B Snow-Trac. It was produced by Lesney for the range between 1964 and 1969. Now, when I first saw this month's chosen casting, I immediately knew what I would be doing with it. It's what I think I know best, a straight-up restoration. I think this casting deserves a refresh, having been painted over by a previous owner. As with nearly all second-hand and evidently played with examples, it's missing its white tracks. Some came with decals and later cast lettering that read Snow-Trac on each side. Here's a decent example of how it should look, this one with the decal lettering. And here is the real thing. I was amazed to learn when I started out restoring and doing some research that this was not just a flight of fancy casting, but based on a very real vehicle. My restoration of the 35B will be a clean-cut, no decal version. This is both because I couldn't see any hint of lettering remnants on its side, but also because most reproduction decals hadn't quite got the font right. On its introduction to the Matchbox range, the Snow-Trac replaced the 35A ERF horse box. It was offered only in red throughout its lifespan, with a silver base plate. No trim was applied, as the triangle-tipped grille was cast into the base. Also cast into the base was the tow hook, while top and bottom rollers were cast in between the axles. The model had 3 axles onto which 6mm rollers were fitted. These supported the white tracks that are so often broken or missing. Here I am removing the rollers now. As you can see, the model was fitted with a dark green tinted transparency for all round window coverage. There were no casting variations during its production run, and it was replaced by the 35C Merryweather fire engine in 1969. I'll be really intrigued to see what other creators come up with for this build. I couldn't hack something like this to pieces quite like some of the more modern stuff myself, but I guess that is just sentimentality speaking. Speaking of which, now it's time to strip this one's paint. Lars Larsson, a Swedish design engineer for farm equipment company AB Västeråsmaskiner, developed a tracked vehicle to take he and his brother fishing during the snowy winter months. His vehicle entered production in 1957 and was called the Active Fisher Snow-Trac. Constructed of mostly air-cooled Volkswagen parts, the Snow-Trac had a Beetle flat 4 engine and transmission from the Type 2 transporter. A variator allowed the Snow-Trac to use a conventional steering wheel instead of levers. In the cabin, only the driver faced forwards, while bench seats on either side could seat 6 passengers. Entry and exit is made by a single rear door, but many also came with an opening sunroof. While the vehicle was made in Sweden, it proved popular in the export markets. Over 500 made their way over to Alaska, 200 or so to the Canadian National Railway, approximately 400 was shipped to the lower 48 states, while at least 200 made the shorter trip to Scotland. The Snow-Trac was versatile too. In addition to the standard 7-person passenger configuration, a 2-person cabin with exposed cargo bay was also available. Fully open top or canvas roofed examples were used by the British Royal Marines, while others were used on sand in Texan oil fields. Sand-based Snow-Tracs were often called sand tracks. Snow-Trac ST4s were also used by NATO. Modified Snow-Tracs were used as ski slope grooming equipment and referred to as the Snowmaster and previously called the Trackmaster. A number were shipped to Japan and used in the 1972 Winter Olympics in Sapporo. Between 1957 and 1981, approximately 2,265 Snow-Tracs were manufactured in Sweden, when production stopped due to Volkswagen phasing out their air-cooled engines. Further units were assembled in Scotland, which means that more than 2,300 were made. With spare parts readily available, many Snow-Tracs remain in use today, and are still often used day to day in winter months. The Snow-Trac was so effective in deep, soft snow because the light and wide tracks produced far less pressure on the ground, less so than a human foot. This allowed it to almost float across soft surfaces, and made them effective across sand dunes and mudflats as well. While I fit my reproduction tracks to my restored base, did you know a Snow-Trac features in Stanley Kubrick's 1980 film The Shining? Well, now you do. It doesn't get very far in the film, mind. A perfectly executed demonstration there. Okay, so on with reassembly. To put it all back together, I take my repainted body and cabin section and insert the polished green window piece. The base section with both tracks attached fits together through a tongue and a slot at the back. It clicks together at the front and can be secured with an M2 screw. So here is how my Matchbox 35B Snow-Trac ST4 looked when we kicked off this January build-off. It had been painted over by a previous owner who had added in some interesting white stripes here and there. It was also missing its tracks, so I've bought in some reproduction white ones. It's an interesting casting that I was originally shocked to discover was a real vehicle, but it will be great to see what others have come up with for this build-off. So now to reveal my restored version. I've lost that patchwork paintwork and replaced it with a solid red, choosing not to add in any decals to the sides. The silver cast grille peeps through the gap in the casting, while the mechanics of the black plastic rollers, white tracks and the silver cast top and bottom rollers come together brilliantly in this unique model. In addition, that green window piece is cleaned and polished up rather nicely. So I apologise if you might have been expecting a wacky and wild custom from me. I just thought, you know what, stick to what you know best with this one, and I think that that's paid off. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. As ever, please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Do check out all the other builders' efforts, there are some really creative and awesome people in this community. So that just leaves me to say thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you again for the next one. Bye for now.